A pleasant day to our esteemed panel members and viewers. My name is Roy Lantano from Group 1 from the College of Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, major in Marketing Management, representing Section 4. Today, we are proud to present our research proposal entitled Influence of Buy Now, Pay Later Marketing Strategies on Purchasing Power of PUP-OUS Students, a descriptive correlational study. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll walk you through our methodological blueprint and the core frameworks that guides this study. To begin chapter 1, here is our roadmap. We'll cover our background, research gaps, and frameworks, leading directly to our core problem and hypothesis. This also includes scope and limitations, and finally, the significance of this research. Right now, inflation is forcing 47% of Filipinos to cut back on everyday spending. Yet, a massive digital shift is happening at the same time. 60% of millennials are seeking new credit channels, and 41% are actively targeting buy now, pay later apps. Our research analyzes these trends through four key motivations. Number one, the credit paradox. How high inflation ironically drives working class consumers to rely on digital microfinancing just to stretch their daily cash flow. Second, PUP-OUS student vulnerability. Unlike typical full-time students, PUP Open University students are income-earning working adults juggling workloads, daily commutes, and rising household bills. Buy now, pay later as an active strategy. Evaluating how buy now, pay later acts as an aggressive marketing tool, using installment pricing and algorithmic pushes, rather than just a passive payment checkout button. Lastly, the Philippine literature gap, moving beyond standard technology models to prove how direct exposure to buy now, pay later marketing artificially inflates our consumer perceived purchasing power. To clearly define what sets our study apart, let's examine our thesis arguments against existing literatures. What we historically knew from prior literature focused heavily on technology acceptance models and basic adaptation rates. Our study shifts to strategic focus towards active fintech marketing strategies, analyzing user interfaces, user experiences, algorithms, and micro targeted promotions. Furthermore, while past research evaluated broad spending behaviors and personal views, we are investigating concrete indicators of perceived purchasing power, specifically tracking liquidity, availability, budget elasticity, and subjective depth stream. Geographically and demographically, instead of studying fresh college graduates with no dependents, our generational cohort isolates working distance learning professionals navigating complex household budgets. Methodologically, we move past basic urban purposive sampling to apply rigorous descriptive correlational modeling across a specialized distance learning network.
Our conceptual framework shows the relationship between our two variables. On the left is our independent variable, which refers to the different marketing strategies used by buy now, pay later platforms. These include promotional offers, user friendly app features, and targeted digital advertisements. On the right is our dependent variable, which is the consumer's perceived purchasing power. This focuses on how users feel about their available money, their flexibility in budgeting, the burden of prepayments, and how this affect their financial decisions. Connecting these two variables are three theories: the item model, mental accounting theory, and present bias theory. This explains how exposure to buy now, pay later marketing can influence consumers' perceptions and spending behavior. Moving on to our theoretical framework, this explains how marketing strategies and psychological factors work together to make student professionals feel that they have more purchasing power than they actually do. First, the item model. This explains how buy now, pay later advertisements capture attention, create interest and desire, and eventually encourage consumers to make a purchase through easy and convenient payment options. Second, the mental accounting theory. This suggests that consumers tend to divide large expenses into smaller monthly payments. Because of this, the cost feels less painful and more manageable or affordable. Lastly, the present bias theory. This explains why people prioritize the benefit of owning a product now while paying less attention to the future burden of debt. Together, these theories show how buy now, pay later marketing can influence consumers' spending behavior and their perception of their financial capability.
This brings us directly to our statement of the problem, serving as our methodological blueprint under descriptive, correlational, and predictive paradigm. Our study systematically answers six core research questions broken into three phases. Phase 1 establishes our descriptive foundation. Question 1 seeks the socioeconomic profiling of our respondents in terms of sex, age, civil status, employment status, academic program, and monthly personal income. Question 2 assesses the independent variable exposure levels regarding BNPL strategy, while question 3 gauge the baseline level of our students' perceived purchasing power. Phase 2 establishes the correlational link. Question 4 directly asks, is there a significant link between BNPL exposure level and perceived purchasing power? This relationship will be processed using Pearson's R as our statistical engine. Finally, phase 3 executes predictive modeling. Question 5 asks whether BNPL marketing strategy exert a significant overall predictive effect on purchasing power using multiple linear regression. Use Question 6 isolates the predictors to determine which specific dimension, promotional UI/UX or digital ads, is the strongest driver of purchasing power changes. Now we have our research hypothesis, which we will test at a 0.05 significance level. We are looking at this in two ways. On the left is our correlational analysis using Pearson R. Our null hypothesis H not one states that there is no significant level between BNPL marketing strategies and student purchasing power. On the right is our predictive analysis using multiple linear regression. Our second null hypothesis, H not 2, states that these marketing strategies do not significantly predict student purchasing power. Our goal is to test this hypothesis to see if BNPL tactics truly drive changes in how students spend. Scope and limitation. Now, the boundaries of our study follow these four steps. First, our total population covers over 14,000 PUPOU as student professionals who earn their own income and manage their own budget. Second, we focus strictly on Metro Manila residents to avoid shipping and delivery biases inherent to rural e-commerce. Third, respondents must be active users of platforms like SPayLater, LastPayLater, JGives, or BillIs within the past years. Finally, using Sloven formula with a 5% margin error, we established a minimum sample size of 389 respondents to ensure dependable results. Moving on to our significance of the study, our research offered critical insight for four key stakeholders. First, PUPOUS student. It served as a financial defense mechanism, empowering non-traditional students to spot behavioral interface triggers and make responsible financial choices. Second, marketing managers. It provides a roadmap for ethical customer acquisition, balancing consumer loyalty with sustainable, non-exploitative installment practices. Third, for future researcher, it bridges economic and UX design, creating a new foundation for studying behavioral economics within modern digital platform architectures. Finally, for policymakers like BSP and SEC, it delivers evidence-backed data to help shape consumer rights frameworks, especially focusing on transparent BNPL pricing and digital checkout cancellation rights.
Moving to Chapter 2, our review of related literature establishes the foundation of this study by examining the growing role of Buy Now Pay Later or BNPL in the Philippine digital economy. Buy Now Pay Later is a microfinancing tool that allows consumers to divide purchases into smaller installment payments instead of paying the full amount immediately. In the Philippines, it has evolved from a payment option into a financial tool that helps consumers maintain purchasing power despite limited funds and rising inflation. Its growth has been supported by platforms such as Shopee SPay Later, Lazada Last Pay Later, TikTok Shop, and GCash, making BNPL widely accessible to Filipino consumers. The literature identifies three major BNPL marketing strategies: promotional mechanics, UI UX conversion strategies, and targeted digital advertising. Promotional tactics such as discount vouchers and 0% interest offers makes purchases appear more affordable. Meanwhile, frictionless features like one-click checkout and pre-selected payment options simplify the buying process. Platforms also use personalized advertisement and reward system to increase engagement. Together, the strategies reduce psychological barriers to spending and encourage greater use of credit-based purchases. Purchasing behavior. The literature also examines how consumers respond to these strategies through purchasing behavior. Studies show that Filipino consumers often use strategic shopping behaviors such as waiting for promotional events before completing purchases through credit. However, seamless digital interfaces can also encourage online purchases and impulsive buying decisions. Purchasing power and consumer decision making. Research suggests that BNPL changes how consumers perceive affordability by postponing immediate payment obligation. This contributes to what researchers call the liquidity flypaper effect, where consumers quickly use the additional liquidity created by deferred payment for other purchases. As a result, perceived purchasing power increased, although financial risk may be overlooked. Impact of BNPL on consumer spending behavior. The literature consistently show a positive relationship between BNPL usage and increased spending. Studies indicate that users often spend more frequently and purchase more than originally intended, particularly among younger consumers. While BNPL offers convenience and flexibility, repeated use may increase reliance on future income to meet repayment obligations. Psychological behavior and effect of BNPL. Several theories explain these outcomes. Mental accounting theory suggests that consumers view installment payment as more manageable than a single large payment. Present bias explains why consumers prioritize immediate rewards over future repayment cost. Time inconsistency highlights the tendency to favor short-term satisfaction despite long-term consequences. In additional, digital anesthesia suggests that seamless digital interface reduce the psychological pain of paying, making spending decision more easier and less consequential. Financial literacy, depth, and financial responsibility. This literature highlights the financial risk associated with BNPL. Frequent use can lead to loan stacking where consumers manage multiple repayment obligations across different platforms. However, studies show that individuals with stronger financial literacy and budgeting skill are better able to manage this obligation and reduce financial risk. E-commerce, digital payment, and BNPL growth, these developments are closely linked to the growth of the Philippine digital economy. The increasing use of e-commerce and e-wallet has created a favorable environment for BNPL services, which are now widely viewed as convenient form of digital credit that supports online purchases. In synthesizing the literature, previous studies have established a relationship between BNPL usage and consumer spending behavior. However, several important gaps remain. First, the strategic focus gap, as existing studies mainly examine technology adoption rather than specific BNPL marketing strategies. Second, the variable outcome gap, since our study examined purchasing power, perceived liquidity, and financial strain instead of focusing only on spending intention. Third, the generational cohort gap, as our study focuses specifically on PUP, Open University System, student professional. Finally, the scope gap, because our NCR-wide sample expands beyond the limited geographic coverage used in previous studies. These gaps provide the rationale for our study, and serve as the basis for our conceptual framework and methodology. This concludes our review of related literature and synthesis. We will now proceed to the discussion of research methodology.
We can now proceed to Chapter 3 to discuss our methodology, starting with our method of research. To systematically map the relationship between BNPL marketing strategies and perceived purchasing power, this study utilizes a quantitative, descriptive, correlational, and predictive research design. It is descriptive as it profiles our respondents' socioeconomic status and measures their current levels of independent and dependent variable exposures. It is correlational because we aim to determine if a significant relationship exists between active platform tactics and consumer behavior. Finally, it is predictive because we seek to model how specific marketing dimensions mathematically influence changes in a student professional's perceived purchasing power over time. Now, let's discuss our population sample size and sampling technique. Our target population consists of 14,394 active students enrolled in PUPOUS IODE for academic year 2025 to 2026. Since surveying the entire population was not practical, we used Slovin's formula with a 5% margin of error to determine the sample size. The computation resulted in 389.18 respondents, which was rounded up to 390 respondents. For our sampling technique, we used non-probability purposive sampling. Respondents were selected based on specific criteria. Must be active PUPOUS students, have an independent source of income or employed, reside or work within NCR, and have used at least one buy now pay later platform such as SPay Later, Last Pay Later, G-Credit, or BillEase within the past 12 months. These criteria ensured that our 390 respondents were relevant to the study and could provide meaningful insights into BNPL usage among PUPOUS students. Our description of respondents focuses deeply on the socioeconomic profiling outlined in the phase 1 of our problem statement. Unlike traditional full-time undergraduate cohorts, our respondents are working student professionals, preferably millennials and Gen Z. We will formally profile them across 6 key areas: age, sex, civil status, employment status, academic program, and monthly personal income. Focusing on this group is important because they earn their own income while also dealing with rising inflation, school expenses, and household bills. Because of these financial responsibilities, they are more likely to use digital buy now pay later services that allow them to divide payments and make purchases immediately.
Now, let's talk about our research instrument. We built a structured questionnaire that's actually grounded in three main consumer behavior theories: IDA, mental accounting, and present bias. We've broken it down into three simple parts. Part one is pretty straightforward. It sets up our classification metrics to capture the basic social demographic and financial backgrounds of our respondents. Part two looks at how much exposure they have to retail credit marketing tactics. We're using a 5 point Likert scale from very low to very high to see how they interact with things like promotional mechanics, user interface or user experience design, and targeted digital ads. Then part three dives into the actual impact on their purchasing power. This uses a scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree so we can assess their day-to-day spending, what's left of their budget, and their overall ability to save. To make sure everything is completely accurate before we go live, three subject matter experts in marketing research are going to review it for us. And finally, we'll run a quick pilot test with 30 OUS students outside of our main sample. Our goal there is to hit a Cronbach's alpha of 0.7p or higher, just to prove the instrument is completely reliable before the real rollout. To make sure our data gathering is both administratively sound and highly ethical, we've structured our process into four clear steps. First, institutional clearance. We will secure official clearance from our All-US Director, Dr. Raul Lacerna, and Program Chair Ms. Milka de la Fuente, while also teaming up with the OUS Student Council to help us distribute the survey properly. Second, ethical deployment. We're deploying the survey digitally via Google Forms through official student channels. Right on the very first page, participants will see an electronic informed consent form. This ensures total confidentiality, and full compliance with the Data Privacy Act of 2012. To keep our data accurate, we do have a systematic screening. We built in automated logic branching that instantly filters out non NCR residents and non BNPL users. We'll keep this collection window open for 3 weeks to reach our target quota. And finally, once the raw data is exported to Excel, we'll use Python's Pandas library to algorithmically scrub out any duplicate entries or straight line response biases before starting our actual analysis. Before conducting our multiple linear regression analysis, we must first test several regression assumptions to ensure that our model produces accurate and reliable results. First is normality. This means that the residuals or prediction errors of the model should follow a normal distribution. To test this, we will use the Shapiro-Wilk test, and we will also verify the results through a QQ plot. Second is linearity. The assumption requires that a straight line relationship exists between the independent variables and the dependent variable. We will assess this using partial regression plots and confirm it through scatter plot analysis. Third is multicollinearity. This checks whether the independent variables are too closely related to one another, which could affect the accuracy of the model. And to evaluate this, we will use the variance inflation factor or VIF, and as a rule, VIF values should remain below 10 to indicate that multicollinearity is not a concern. Lastly, we test homozygosity, which means that the variance of the residuals remain consistent across all levels of the independent variables. This will be examined using the Broch-Pagan test and confirmed through residual plots. By satisfying these four assumptions, we can be more confident that our regression model is valid, reliable, and appropriate for predicting purchasing power. Finally, let us discuss our statistical treatment of data, which identifies the statistical tools we will use to answer each research question. For our descriptive phase, covering questions 1, 2, and 3, we will use percentage, distribution, and weighted mean. Percentage distribution will help us describe the socio-demographic profile of the respondents, such as age, income, and other characteristics. Meanwhile, weighted mean will be used to determine the overall levels of BNPL marketing exposure and purchasing power by identifying the average responses of participants. For question 4, which aims to determine whether there is a significant relationship between BNPL marketing strategies and purchasing power, we will use person product moment correlation, also known as Pearson's R. This tool measures both the strength and direction of the relationship between the two variables. Lastly, for question 5 and 6, we will use multiple linear regression analysis. This tool allows us to examine how different BNPL marketing strategy dimensions influence purchasing power and identify which specific strategy serves as the strongest predictor. By using the statistical tools, we can ensure that our data is analyzed accurately and that our findings directly address the objectives and hypotheses of this study. This completes our methodological blueprint for Chapter 3.
Finally, our conclusion highlights the value of this study for three main groups. Number one, for policymakers and Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. It provides evidence that buy now, pay later acts as an aggressive marketing tool, establishing a baseline to regulate ethical checkouts and transparent pricing. Number two, for e-commerce marketers. It draws an ethical line between building real consumer loyalty and using exploitative traps that cause customer debt fatigue. And lastly, for the student professionals, it serves as a financial literacy blueprint, helping PUP OUS students protect their purchasing power from algorithmic manipulation.